Hey everyone, and welcome back. So sorry guys, we're a few minutes late, but finding this freaking podcast was like impossible, and that's because they didn't actually put it as a live podcast. They put it as a video. Yeah, I'm gonna cut out that first minute or two because I've been scrambling trying to find the link. They've just put it up as a video, so I still think I want to stream a live reaction to this because we're going to figure out if we're going to get any news on games coming to the Nintendo Switch or anything like that. And the fact that we're maybe 5 or 7 minutes late, you know what? Everyone, I think, right now is in the same boat. But yeah, I think it's hi-fi. Some people probably already heard what it is. But let's get it started and we'll talk as we go through this. Now, I'm just going to pop my desktop audio on. Oof, this was like a scramble to get things going. When I couldn't, I was here like 15 minutes
early.
Hello,
and welcome to the official Xbox podcast. I'm your host, Tina.
Podcast running, it was like driving me nuts. So I'm just going to grab a headset here so that I can listen in separately.
Some updates at Xbox. We want to talk about game exclusivity. We want to talk about Activision Blizzard now that they're part of our portfolio. How that might be an impact on Game Pass. We want to talk about hardware too and how all of this fits into the strategy at Xbox. So where should we start, Phil?
Well, when we originally had planned for the show, starting back in December.
So sorry, that was actually because
probably
I was
would have started with Activision,
so that's why my
Blizzard,
computer went insane for a
maybe
second
talked
there.
A little bit about the exclusivity with some of the news coming up, and then hardware. But we've had some unforeseen news that has come out. So let's just go and tackle the exclusivity question, because I know it's on the minds of a lot of people. We hear from the community, and that's an important
Yeah, it's really funny that they did this as a video.
So we made the decision that we're going to take
worried
four
about
games
sort of the live
to the other
community
consoles.
reaction, that's why they
just 4
decided
games.
to do it this way.
Not a change to our kind of fundamental exclusive strategy. We're making these decisions for some specific reasons.
So what are the 4 games?
We make every decision really with the long-term health of Xbox in mind. And long-term health of Xbox means a growing platform, our games performing, building the best platform for creators, reaching as many
I'm
players
try
as
not
we
to
can.
talk the whole
We're
time.
always looking to learn as a
because I want us to get the information and to grow.
And we think this is an
I already know it's
point
not
in time
Starfield
for us
and Indiana Jones. At
use
least
what
not
some
for
of the
the
other
moment.
platforms
Sorry
have right now
to let you
to
down,
help grow our
Galva.
franchises. So we're going to do that.
So these 4 titles, what are they? Can you say?
I'm not going to name those games. The teams that are building those games have announced plans that are not too far away. As we know, game teams put a lot of energy into their announcements with the partners.
That's sort of like
I don't want to take anything away from those teams. So I won't be talking about the titles specifically, but I think when they come out, it'll make sense.
Can we say if either of those titles are Starfield or Indiana Jones?
They are not Starfield or Indiana Jones.
They are not Starfield.
What was the
and
criteria
Indiana
and how the team was thinking about
unfortunate.
selecting those 4 titles?
Let me start a little bit outside of that, and then I'll get to the 4 specific games that we're talking about right now. Because the fundamental decision driver for any decision that we make, anything we're going to talk about today, is the long-term health of Xbox. That we're running a growing platform that is reaching more players, that our games are having as much success as possible.
I'm guessing it's going to be like hi-fi.
And
too.
I do have a fundamental belief that over the next 5 or 10 years,
it's not going to be
exclusive games that are exclusive to
like
one
they're showing
piece of
Halo,
hardware are going to be a
Forza.
smaller and smaller part of the game industry. And
they
that's
really
not
want
some
to try
great
and
insight, because if you
Forza
look
and
at the
Halo
last
on
10
other
years
platforms.
and what
Maybe
the biggest
Halo,
games
maybe
are
they
today,
need the player
it's a natural
boost.
place. Whether it's one console and PC, multiple consoles, mobile console and PC, you see big games landing on multiple platforms. And we want to be a great platform for creators that are trying to realize that potential. But now back to the specifics of the question on these four specific titles. We looked at games that are over a year old. So they've been on Xbox and PC for a while.
Not a year old.
A couple of the games are community-driven games, new games that kind of first iterations of a franchise that have reached their full potential, I'd say, on Xbox and PC. There's always growth. Franchises that we obviously want to continue to invest in. Part of having the ability to continue to invest is that the businesses behind those franchises continue. We think it's important that these service-based games that have communities behind them, that they can have confidence that they're going to exist in the future. So 2 of them, kind of community-driven games that will end up on other
Hi-Fi
platforms
Rush
and
is
give
more
us
than
the
a
ability
year
to
old.
continue
It
to
came out on
invest in them. We
January
think that's great
25th.
for the business and great for the community.
So
It's more players
theoretically,
to
it
play
could be
with.
Hi-Fi Rush, even with
I'd
that.
say 2 of the
that
other games
comment.
are smaller games that were never really meant to be built as kind of platform exclusives and all the fanfare that goes around that. But games that our teams really wanted to go build, that we love supporting creative endeavors across our studios, regardless of size. And as they've realized their full potential on Xbox and PC, we see an opportunity to utilize the other platforms.
When they say realize their potentials, that means
drive more business value
sales
out of those games, allowing
basically
us
flattened
to
out.
invest
The games
in
are
maybe
just not
future
selling,
iterations of those, so sequels to those,
like
or just other games
remarkably
like that in
anymore
our portfolio.
on Xbox.
And when we don't damage
they want to
Xbox
continue
and we
selling
can
the
grow our
game.
business using what other platforms have and to help us with that, we're going to do that. And that's really the story behind these 4 games. And last thing I'll say, looking forward, I think there is an interesting story for us of introducing Xbox franchises to players on other platforms to get them more interested in Xbox. We think there's a good brand value for Xbox there. So 4 games, no promise beyond that. So if you're on those other platforms and you see these 4 games coming, please don't take it as some signal that everything's coming. It's not. And we're going to learn.
Man, they
so when you are
are
thinking about
worried.
the future and this
They
concept
are
of
worried
live
that
service
people were going to
games that
jump
can
off
benefit
of the
from bigger
Xbox
audiences
ship.
and new
To say it
audiences,
that way,
how does
don't
that apply
worry,
to future
everything's
titles
not
and how you're
coming.
applying that criteria there?
Yeah, there's really no fundamental change to how we think about exclusivity. We just came out of Developer Direct, which was an awesome show, where we showed great games that are coming to Xbox and PC and cloud, which really makes them accessible to hundreds of millions of people.
We're going to translate a lot of this, by the way.
We're really focused on a couple platforms and what's going to show up there. But our key of play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, when everybody plays, we all win. These have been part of our strategy for years and will continue to be. Our focus is on how do we continue to grow the games industry by reaching more players in more places, and how do we grow Xbox as part of that. Xbox is a hardware platform, Xbox is a publisher of great games, and Xbox as a platform for the world's best creators.
And then knowing that, how do we think about our first-party games and Game Pass?
Yeah, well, to build on what Phil just said, one thing I would add, as you were talking about growth, is just that we've sort of seen this inversion over the last 5 years, where it used to be that the platform was the biggest thing.
That's right.
And the games would sort of tuck in within the platform. Today, big games like a Roblox or a Fortnite could actually be bigger than any one platform. And that really has changed the way that we think about things. So in the midst of all that, I think we at First Party can come back to sort of some core principles. First, that all of our games will be on the Xbox platform. Second, all of our games will go into Game Pass on day 1. And third, we know that Game Pass will only be available on Xbox. So there's sort of starting points for us. As Phil mentioned, there are games today that you can play that only can be found on Xbox. And at the same time, we want to bring more of our games to more players. So we're going to continue to look at that. Kind of moving aside, though, from some of those and thinking more about what does it really mean for the player, to me, the 2 key things are cross-play and cross-save. Those things allow us to deliver on the promise of Xbox, which is play with your friends where they are, play on the devices you want, play the games you want. So that is really only possible at a practical level when you know that your saves and your player are going to be able to move across all those parts. So not all of our games today are necessarily built to take advantage of that. There still will be some games that don't. As we bring more teams into the Xbox family, there's some catch up to do as we get there. But that cross-play, cross-save is like so fundamental to what we're doing, and I think it's something that we as First Party get such a good benefit from being so close to the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things, like you said, all of our games are always in Game Pass. And so I'm excited to announce, with the coming together that we had with Activision Blizzard King, that Activision and Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass, starting with Diablo 4 on March 28th, which I'm super, super excited to share today. And it's all part of our commitment to make Xbox, the Xbox experience, and the games that we build is widely available as possible. So now the 34 million Game Pass members can all enjoy the fantastic experience of Diablo 4.
Oh, don't worry, I will.
Can we come back to the point, Phil, you mentioned at the top, this isn't really a change
Honestly,
in strategy
if they would have come out on PlayStation, I would have already played it on PlayStation.
And I thought both Matt and Sarah did a really nice job of talking about what we're doing on Xbox, where we're going. You know, if you take a platform feature like Xbox Play Anywhere, which has been a promise that we've made on our first party games, that you can buy our game once, you're going to get to play across Xbox and Windows. I think we're the only platform that does this. That makes it possible for you not only to play with your friends wherever they are, but to know that you actually have multiple entitlements to the games. I think that's a technology I would love to see applied to more platforms. But it is this view that people are going to play Xbox in multiple places. Whether it's play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, whether it's content, community, and cloud, whether it's when everybody plays, we all win. Like, we've had different taglines, different strategy, kind of words that we've used, but always with this view that Xbox is a platform for creators who want to reach the most players. Our investments in xCloud, our investments in franchises like Minecraft and now Call of Duty and other large franchises so that we learn how to build those. This has been a strategy that we've been on for, I'd say, a decade.
They got so much traction.
It's not about one
device.
People were going it's not about games in service of a device. But rather, the devices that people want to play on should be in service of making the games as big and
they don't want to
popular
name the games because they don't want to ruin
because really a healthy creator community on
Xbox,
a healthy creator community in gaming
they basically don't
is the
want
thing
to
that
just
all of us
ruin
as
it
game
all
players
and drop
should be
it in a
voting for,
podcast.
because that's the thing that will lead to the best long-term success and growth in this industry.
But we've got
and my
some,
understanding
we've got
just
some
from
leads,
listening and learning from you three over the past few weeks, just understanding what's happening with Xbox, is that we see trends with player behavior where people are playing on multiple devices. That is the reality. And we have put some games out on multiple platforms before. So my understanding is that that's been good for players. How does that come back to the business with all of that in mind?
Because they're not going to do it
as you said. We have shipped games on other platforms. In fact,
I think
realistically, if you look with the addition of Activision Blizzard and ZeniMax, we're one of the largest game publishers on PlayStation. We're one of the largest publishers on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you put Minecraft into the equation as well. And now we're one of the largest publishers on mobile platforms as well. And that's not something that we want to back away from. We want to continue to be building great games that millions and millions of people can love, and that they can play those games where they want to go play. But we do understand the business success that Xbox has to have. Us as leaders in this business, the system today, the system that all companies that we play video games from, is a world of you got to be growing your business. Growth in our Xbox business is critical to the long-term health of Xbox. Many people know I've been on Xbox for over 20 years. And I want to make sure Xbox is in the best position for the next 20 years. That means healthy player community, healthy creator community, and healthy business. So when we look at opportunities to allow more people to play, more people engage, more people to buy, more people to subscribe, it's all about putting Xbox in the best position. And our hardware is a critical component of that. The absolute best experience somebody has on Xbox is hardware that your team builds and that people play on. But that's not going to be everybody. So we fully accept that we're going to have Xbox players across all kinds of devices.
So I think a lot of people think about 2023 as this incredible year for gaming. And in a lot of ways it was. There were some really amazing releases that I think we all enjoyed. But what were the signals behind the scenes that maybe indicated how we wanted to look at the future of Xbox and how we kind of keep up with the industry?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it's, as people who care about the industry, which I assume is people who are watching this, it was an amazing year. Some great launches. Some of the games that I think will stand the test of time.
An amazing year, but I think
too
many good launches.
But it's an industry that didn't really grow.
Yeah.
And what happens when an industry doesn't grow? You end up with some job eliminations, which we had. We had even our own hard decisions to make about building a sustainable business for ourselves. But in no way were we alone in that. When you think about a healthy industry, I want players who believe that they will find the best games on the platforms that they love. I want people who invest their careers in working here to feel like this is a place that they can be successful. And that really is down to being part of an industry that is growing. If you listen to Lisa Su, the AMD CEO, she'll say that AMD-powered consoles are likely to decline in 2024. I think there's an amazing set of games coming in 2024, but if we don't get to growing as an industry, the industry will struggle. And today there's really two choices on how do you grow the industry. Do you say I have a fixed number of players, the players that we have today, and do I find new ways to monetize those players to get more money from the players that I have? Or
Live
do you
service.
think about how do I expand the business I have by finding new players and adding those to the base of players that already play? Our focus on Xbox for the last decade has really been on that latter point of how do we make sure Xbox is growing for our players, growing for our creators, so those people are finding success on our platform, which will grow the Xbox business and put Xbox in a position to be very strong for years and decades
There's
to come.
something that he's saying
Matt,
here
earlier
that's
you
really
were talking about
interesting.
these growing
Once
gaming
we're done, I
communities,
really
how
want to go
they're
over
incredibly
a few of these
large,
points.
and comparable on such a different level when we think about console audiences. Like you mentioned Roblox, you mentioned Fortnite. So how are we're obviously thinking about our responsibility, our hardware responsibility is supporting the growth of gaming communities. How has that actually shown up for the players? Are there other games we can speak to from our portfolio?
Well, as Phil mentioned, I mean, two of the biggest ones for us, Call of Duty and Minecraft, I mean, they are driven just from the bottom up by the communities of people that play those games, which is so great. I think about it for the player community, it comes down to where are the friends, where are the people you play with, and then equally important is where have you built up your library of games, right? Where have you invested? Where's that library? I think those two things probably are some of the biggest influences on where people choose to play and what devices they choose to play.
Yeah.
When we think about, on the other side, the developer side, just any game developer wants their game to find the biggest audience possible. That's just the nature of building a game. You want people to enjoy and participate in what you've made. And I think we're in a unique position to deliver on that just because we are the platform. We build hardware. We've got a first-party games group, and then we've got a system that ties that together.
It's available
that brings together your friends, your progression, your achievements, all of that. And I think that's really what has contributed to the momentum behind some of these communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at, just step back and you look at the history of the industry, we've moved from a place where it used to be that someone built and launched a game to accelerate hardware to actually the things we do with our hardware and with our platform are all in service of making those games bigger. And we think about that across all of the investments we make, the consoles we build, the investments we do with things like cross-play, cross-progression, the things that we're doing with cloud.
And
how do we
way,
actually get more options to game creators so they can have the greatest success? I think one of the fun recent examples about this is actually Palworld.
But I don't think
Palworld was able to launch. They were game preview. They launched in Game Pass. They also simultaneously launched in Steam. And through the combination of those things, Pocket Pair was able to have this outsized success. And it was the largest third-party Game Pass launch ever. And that's all because we give creators options on how they can launch their games. We've got subscription, we've got retail, we've got free-to-play, we've got game preview. We have the consoles, we have our experience on PC, and they can access all of those things.
Yeah, but it's a third party, they specified.
We just look at the performance of our platform all up. We know it's working. We're at the highest level of users on console, the highest level of users on PC, the highest level of users on cloud ever. We have double-digit growth rate on PC and cloud, places where we're enabling creators to actually reach new players beyond the console ecosystem. And that's why we're leaning into it and doing more, because we see all those signals.
So we're talking about the role that hardware plays for creators, for the games and those communities. What about the role that hardware plays for us as a business, for Xbox?
When we look at our hardware, it really is, and Phil said this earlier, it's where you get like the most flagship seminal experience of Xbox. And it also represents a developer target. Our developers can build the specs of our hardware, and we invest to make sure they know when they do that the games are going to run great on our hardware, but they're also going to be able to be accessed across any screen because of all the other investments we make. So we're giving them an easy way to access as many players as possible. And we actually have more creators right now building for Xbox than ever before by nature, thousands of them by nature of those investments. And we got more to come. There's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday. And we're also invested in the next generation roadmap. And what we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technology technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building.
And then when we're talking about hardware too, there's these other considerations that are really important to our community, probably to each one of ourselves as well. When you talk about library, because I want to dig in on that a little bit more. You know, as we talk about cloud in the wider entertainment industry, there's conversations about streaming. How is that impacting how I own my content that I've invested in? So what can we say about our stance around game preservation?
Yeah, you know, one of the highlights for me of being in this position was getting to stand on stage when we announced back compat coming to Xbox One. Like, it was fantastic. People were reading the teleprompter before I could read it. Slow reader, and just feeling the energy in the auditorium as we were saying that online. You know, one of the cues I think us as being part of Microsoft take is looking at Windows. And how Windows over decades has maintained software compatibility
Microsoft's
with things that
strategy
are built on it.
across
like I can
gaming.
still go back and play some
I was
of the
going to talk
games that
about
I love
Windows.
playing on Windows from decades ago.
Already from what he was saying
we
earlier,
try to bring
I had
that same view to consoles. It's harder in console because the line between what the hardware is and what the game is in consoles is traditionally it's tighter, which makes compatibility, you end up doing these generational
like when you read between the lines of what they said
but
earlier,
I will say,
you could already see
the ability to not only play
what
the
they're
games,
trying to
but
do.
my saves are still there with our cloud save systems to try to keep the services up as long as we can so that people can play is a tenet of what we are as Xbox. It's at our foundation. And when we look at future hardware generations and what we're going to support, making sure that we respect, which is the word I use, respect the investments that people have made in Xbox going forward is fundamental. And the fact that you get entitlements when you buy a game from us on both Windows and Xbox also means you have the ability to play that game across a multitude of devices, which I think furthers the compatibility of the games that you own.
Can we go back to what Xbox stands for today? I think we've pretty much covered all of the elements, but if you could break it down for me.
You know, when you play on Xbox, what we're saying is you're playing on a platform where you know the biggest games in the world are always going to be. You're playing on a platform where you get to access Game Pass. And all of the games from our incredible range of studios will always launch in Game Pass day one. And you're playing on a platform that's dedicated to you, like player-first features, cross-play, cross-save, cross-progression, backwards compatibility.
How many times can you
being
say
able
the
to
word
play your games in your
something?
library anywhere you want because of the investments that we make in cloud gaming. And so you're playing somewhere where you're investing and
We've
you
got
know
like
you get to
3
take the
minutes
games
left, and then
forward
we'll
with
talk
you and
about it
across
all.
all of the screens where you are. And I think most importantly, Xbox is a place where you know when you're investing in Xbox, you're investing somewhere that is dedicated to making games more successful and creators more successful so that they can invest more to bring even better experiences to you all of the time.
Yeah, just that investment in the studios is so, and we feel that as part of first party with the platform proximity. You know, it's kind of amazing now to look out across all the studios we've got and just be reminded that we're now one of the biggest development organizations in the industry. What does that mean for players? It means that the biggest games are going to continue to come to Xbox. And this 2024, the year coming up, we've got more than 10 major releases coming up. Great stuff. Hellblade 2. We've got Diablo expansion. We've got Avowed, Ara, the Indiana Jones game. And there's more in development, which I think we're going to be able to share more about at our June showcase coming up pretty soon.
Well, I guess I should get ready to work on that show. Well, thank you all for showing up on the podcast today, and we'll see the rest of you this June.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
So that was special. That was like we wanna put a fire out before it starts before it gets any bigger than it already is, and most likely they didn't want people to start like canceling their Game Pass subscriptions. Now, I'm not saying that people would do it till there's an actual announcement, but I think they were maybe scared that it would go in that direction. Okay, so give me a sec here. Let's get this out of the way. We saw the whole thing. Now, like I said, I tried to keep my talking while they were talking to a minimum because it's not like when we're watching a direct where there's like sort of downtime. They were switching from one person to another, and I mean, if I'm talking over someone. Now, as I said, though, I took some notes that basically try and translate at least what they said so far and what seems to be the strategy that they want to go with. So, first of all, they put a big emphasis on the fact that, number one, they're not focusing on launching games on like Nintendo or PlayStation 5, or at least that's what it seemed like. That for the moment, they're targeting 4 games. And those 4 games are more than a year old. Now, I checked Hi-Fi Rush, as someone anyway pointed out in the chat. It is over a year old. It came out on January 25th. So it just hit its 1-year anniversary last month. So theoretically, even if we're talking about Hi-Fi Rush, he's not lying. He's not stretching the truth. It is over a year old, although barely. But he did mention that basically the 4 games targeted were also games that achieved their potential on Xbox. Achieved their potential on Xbox can normally be translated to sales have flattened. So, basically, I'll just take the probably opposite of this. If you look at Mario Kart Deluxe on the Switch, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch, the sales never flattened. So Nintendo's never been pushed to make a new Mario Kart because people are still buying the freaking previous one. However, when a game flattens, meaning that they're looking at their sales over the last quarter, or over the last few months, and they're trickling in, but there's no major growing of the communities. That's basically a game that's achieved its potential on Xbox. What they mean is that probably everyone who has an Xbox that wanted that game has that game. You'll have a few last-minute people that will pick it up during a sale, during something like that. But you're not going to really grow that game's public anymore. So that seems to be also one of their criteria, is they want to wait for games to have their sales flatten out on Xbox. And then rather than just letting the game die and no longer sell it, well, we're going to sell it to new people. And they said that all throughout the presentation. That was their whole thing about, how can you grow? Either you ask for more money from the people you already have, or you find new people. So basically, games without monetization in the game, the best way to keep making money with that game is to make it available for other people, like other platforms where you can get new games. So yeah, in my opinion, what they're trying to say is that it's timed exclusives, but I don't think they want to officially say what the timing is and how long they're going to be timed, because these are first-party titles, meaning that contractually they don't have to decide what the timed exclusive is before they launch a game. But let's say Indiana Jones launches. So for the moment, they did say it is not Starfield and not Indiana Jones, by the way. So for anyone who missed the presentation, for the moment, the only thing Phil named by name is saying that out of the 4 games that will be coming to other platforms, it is not Starfield and it is not Indiana Jones. But that doesn't mean that in the next batch of games, it couldn't become Indiana Jones. Because, for example, if they put out Indiana Jones, it sells well over like a couple of quarters, and then they see the sales flattening out. You might get Indiana Jones to the PS5 and the Switch. And in the end, if we're talking about selling a console, if the game isn't selling on its own, it isn't going to be selling consoles for you either. So it does make sense in the sense that if you're looking at exclusive selling consoles, exclusives sell consoles most likely in the first 6 months of their lifetime, except for Nintendo titles, because Nintendo titles sell for an insanely long time, and they keep an insane longevity. But on general, in other consoles, I would say like within the first 6 months to a year, so a couple of quarters to maybe a full year, a game will sell consoles for you. After that, it just isn't selling consoles for you anymore, on average. So that does also make a lot of sense. And they put a lot of emphasis too. So basically, they're going really with that play first on Xbox strategy. So that's what I put in my notes here. I put all this does fit, though, with their play first on Xbox. So it's not play exclusively on Xbox. It's play first on Xbox. So that, I think it's going to be a tagline that we're going to see more and more going forward, is the play first on Xbox stuff. Because they're going to focus on it. And I think now there is never going to be a game that is untouchable for cross-platform. However, they're going to be smart about it. They're not going to cut the legs out of a game that could sell consoles for them. Next, we have they talked a lot about cross-play and cross-save. So I do think that's what they want to see people moving towards. And as I said earlier, if you have a Steam Deck, if you have a portable console, because a lot right now of what, let's say what made the Switch the success it is that you can play at home or you can play on the go. I think they're going to start doing a push where their games are going to be playable, maybe not on an Xbox portable console, but on any portable console that runs Windows. Because if you think about it, if you buy a game on Game Pass and you also have it on PC Game Pass, and you have a Windows portable console, you theoretically have the same flexibility of someone that has a Switch, but from your Xbox to your handheld PC. So I do think that's what they're going to try and zoom in. And maybe we'll get an actual Xbox portable console, but I think they're going to push the fact that you don't actually need an Xbox portable console, because any portable PC can become a portable Xbox console. And basically, and that's why I put my note sheet up, because already about halfway through the presentation, it reminded me a lot of the overall Microsoft strategy. When I'm talking about the Microsoft strategy, is if you think about Windows, like, except for servers and enterprise, Microsoft has for a long time stopped with the with consumer PCs or consumer hardware on the PC side. But everyone has a Microsoft product on their computer. Most people that has, like, unless you're running Linux or like for the rare people that are running non-Windows PCs, Microsoft is on everyone's devices in some form. If you're running Windows, or if you're running any like Windows compatible like programs or whatnot. So I do think that they're trying to apply the same type of strategy that Microsoft used to make it one of the most dominating companies in software, but across gaming. Xbox wants to become when I say Xbox wants to become the Microsoft, it's because Microsoft owns Xbox, so it's a weird thing to say, but they want, you know how back in the 80s and 90s, everyone just said you're playing Nintendo, even if you had a Sega Genesis? Like, everyone had their parents tell them, stop playing Nintendo, but you were actually playing Genesis or something like that. Because Nintendo was synonymous with video games. Well, they want Xbox to become synonymous with like online and multi-platform play. Until I buy Office, you're 100% Microsoft free. I just want good Xbox games in general, as there are very little done with making games. Last year, Starfield, and pretty much it. Yeah, the one part of the presentation where I was like, you guys are trying to sell it too hard, is when they're like, the best games are on Xbox, the biggest games are on Xbox. I'm like, ugh, I wouldn't go there, because that like, up until then they were very like, okay, they're salesmen, like they're high level salesmen, so they want to sell the platform. But I think I could get behind everything they were saying, and I could see everything until they started going with like, the biggest games are on Xbox. Not that they don't have big games, not that they don't have good games, but I wouldn't yet go with the biggest games are on Xbox. Yes, you bought Activision Blizzard, but let it settle in where you have actually actively participated in the development of games, because all the games that came out from Activision Blizzard up until now, Microsoft had very little to do with. You know what I mean? They were already in development way before Microsoft got mixed in. So I'm like, give it a few years, like give it at least 2 years that you own Activision Blizzard, then you can actually say that these are Microsoft Xbox games. Or that like you have significantly contributed to these games coming out. But so overall, I think that's what we have to take from this, is that Microsoft's strategy is to become known for software more than hardware, with the hardware to run the games nonetheless. But they really want to focus on being, like they said, a platform and not a console. And overall, unfortunately, we didn't get any games, but we can start to look at the games that came out in the last year from Xbox. I want to see if I can get a list quick. Let me see if I have a list. Xbox games 2020. Hold on. Xbox exclusives 2023 and 2022, because they said more than a year old. Let's hold on. Let's see what I can find here. That's game. Yeah, I don't want top 10. I want all the exclusives. Exclusives 2023. Why are you all giving me the best? I don't want best. Every Xbox is currently announced. No, these are upcoming games. I want a quick list of the whatever. Okay, let's, this isn't going to be perfect, but I think it's as close as I can get, like short term. So let's take a look at, this is from Pure Xbox, and it is the best Xbox exclusives as of February 2024. So Sea of Thieves, it came out March 2018. This could be a very, very safe bet for this being a game coming multi-platform. It has a thriving community. It's a really good game, and I can see it making a lot of sales if it finally comes to PlayStation 5. Obviously not Switch. I don't see this running on Switch. Planet of Lana. Don't know this game. This could be a Switch game. It looks like a puzzle game. So this is where I'm a little out of my element here. So if you guys know more about these games, but this possibly Forza Horizon 5. I wonder if they'd bring out like an older Forza title. Hellblade for the moment is off the list because Hellblade isn't out yet, or Hellblade 2 if we're talking about the second Hellblade. Palworld, not a game for more than a year old. Maybe it's coming, but we don't know for the moment. It shouldn't be in the 4 games that they talk about. Rare Replay. I don't think they do a compilation game coming out. Halo Wars 2. The Gears series had a lot of chatter around it, that the Gears series could be coming to other platforms. And I can see that making a lot of sales for people who haven't played it, and they could actually do the whole series. Quantum Break. See, I don't know Quantum Break. I don't know enough about, so we're gonna skip that one. State of Decay 2. Once again, don't know too much about that one. Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide. I don't see this coming multi-platform for the moment. The Warhammer games can be good, but they're not big sellers, and I don't think they would sell because they come to PlayStation. Those are like PC games. Hi-Fi Rush. Here we have it. Like, honestly, I think this is going to be one of them. I do think this is going to be one of the 4 games. I mean, there's so much chatter around it, and it fits in so perfectly on both the Switch, and PS5 is just going to be free sales at that point. Rise, Son of Rome, Sunset Overdrive. I don't know. Sunset Overdrive, I don't see... This feels too old. You know what I mean? I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, we need that on PlayStation. Halo Infinite. Halo is a funny one because Halo, I think, could really, really benefit from a bigger player community, but I don't think they do it. Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct would be a funny one to finally come, but it's so old that I don't think they do it. Like, I don't think there's enough upside to them. Like, are a bunch of people going to go out and play Killer Instinct at this point? Although it did get lately, remember it got a weird update like a month ago, I feel like saying. So was that like getting the game ready to maybe have a second life on other platforms? But Sony likes money. Sony's not going to say, hey, bring your game out on our console. Like, if Microsoft says, hey, we want to put a game out as a publisher on your console, I don't see Sony saying, no, we don't like money. You know what like, I know it sounds weird, but you have to not think of, like, Sony and Xbox as in two people that hate each other. They are competitors. But most competitors, especially in the business world, they don't hate each other and they don't try to annoy each other. They try to one-up each other to make their product better than the other person. But they don't necessarily want the other product to fail. They just want their product to be more successful. Yeah, but I don't think they are. I think the player base is stuck in the mindset of 25 years ago, but I don't think that like they have a grudge against Xbox or Nintendo or anything like that. I just really, really think, you know, the whole like, are you Xbox, are you PlayStation? The only reason they don't debunk it themselves is it works for them because, you know, like the people get way angrier often than the companies are. The companies, like, if they're angry, they're going to sue you. If they're angry and they have a legal basis, they're just going to sue you. If not, they couldn't give a crap as long as you're not, like, taking money away from them. Yeah, but I think that was a strategy. What I mean is when we say they were, and you're right, Arukusaki, they were against online cross-platform online play, but I think that was because they were trying to be like, you have to be in our ecosystem. You know what I mean? But if you see how they got off the bandwagon when they saw that they can make more money from opening their platforms. Like, look, they did a cross-platform launch of their own last week, Sony, and they made a lot. They made a lot of money. That's what I'm saying is like they're not like the vision I think that people have where like it's a war. It isn't. It's like it's a struggle to one up each other all the time. but it's not a war anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're fighting a war, like I see people getting angry when people say like, oh, a game failed on the other platform. Like, I'm not, personally, I'm not like that. Like when I do it to annoy people. Battletoads, guys. Battletoads would actually work really well on the Switch. Battletoads. I freaking forgot about that. Now, this is old. It's an old game. Well, old. It's 4 years old. But Battletoads would have an extremely... I think they could get a lot of sales out of bringing it to Switch. I think they could get a lot of sales out of bringing Battletoads to Switch. And because it's a 2D beat 'em up, I think it can make it. Like, obviously it would take some work, but seriously, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, let's say they want to do 2 for PlayStation and 2 for PlayStation and Switch. Battletoads could be a really big one. And I do think that one of the failures of Battletoads was that it was released on a console with very few fans of the original Battletoads. Now, I don't want to assume that like Xbox isn't really like the indie retro gamer console. You know, that's like the Switch. And Battletoads is especially for indie retro gamers. It's one of those titles. So we could get... I would really see this fitting in, and I think it would cost them very little to have it run on the Switch and PlayStation. I can see a huge upside with almost zero downside. Because no one in the community is going to cry that Battletoads is now available on the Switch. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to anger any players. I would love to have this come to the Switch because, honestly, I played it on Xbox, and it's fine. I played it on Xbox while I had one for like 6 months before selling it, and it's one of the few games that I was sad to be like, oh, I'm not going to be able to play this anymore. But I could see Battletoads working. Either way, guys, I will, and that wasn't a diss to Xbox. It's just not my type of console. You know, like I said, it's not a diss to Xbox. It's just Xbox is not my type of console. In the sense that every now and then they come out with a great game that I would like to play, but most of their releases could be good games. They could be fun games. They're just not the games that get me going, like really, really excited. Okay, guys, I think at this point, for the reaction stream to the podcast, I think this is where we're going to leave it for today. But I will be back tomorrow evening for the regular stream around 7 p.m. probably. Between 6 and 7 p.m. I'll put it up. I'll try to put it up around 5 to let you guys know when it's starting. But for today, I think we've seen what we need to see. We've got a good reaction here. And unfortunately, the podcast was a little long for what they said. Like, there was a lot of, like, you know what I mean, working it up for not much. But, hey, thank you guys for tuning in with me. Thank you for reacting. I hope you nonetheless enjoyed it. Hopefully, we'll be reacting to a Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Direct before I go on vacation in 2 weeks. So, hopefully, it comes out next week. That would be perfect. If not, we'll see each other on the regular streams, in the videos. Make sure to watch yesterday's deals video. No one's watching it, and I know everyone's waiting for the Nintendo Direct, but there's some great deals in there. You should check it out. Thank you all for watching, and as usual, I hope I'll see all of you in my next video. Have a great day, guys.